Welcome, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm the Grey Strega, and I'm here to give you your masculine, feminine, and non binary energy update for today, Monday, March 2nd, 2026. We are going to get started. We are going to begin today we are going to be beginning our day today with masculine energy. We are going to be utilizing for the headspace of masculine. We're going to be using the Tarot del Fuego right now for the headspace of masculine. Can I please get three cards, please? Three cards, please. One, two, three. We've got one that's cantilevered, two that are up straight. We've got the Knight of Pentacles in its reversal. Cantilevered in the center, we have the Ace of Cups and the Ace of Wands in its reversal. So we've got a lot of ace energy currently in the headspace of masculine. It's interesting though, because it feels, I want to stress this. This is the way I often read. Aces are always beneficial, regardless of whether they're in reverse or in their upright position. And the one thing I keep on seeing in relationality to the work that we identify that's going on with the headspace of masculine right now. And I'm going to keep on saying this. This to me is the eclipse that helps us to heal our relationship to Aries energy. Why is that? Because, and I want to describe that often, and often those who have Aries placements recognize this in terms of the way that others perceive the self versus how we perceive our own selves. There is performative strength, and then there is actual strength, right? There is performative strength, and there is actual strength. And when you know that, when you understand the difference between performative strength and what actual strength is, you're not impressed, right? You're not impressed with performative strength. And it's interesting too, right? Because the only way, right? The only way you can tell the difference, this is why it's important. You want to know why it's important to get strong. Doesn't getting strong, being strong has nothing to do. Like the gift of being strong, yeah, sure, you're strong. But the gift of being strong or the gift of becoming strong is the ability to actually perceive what strength is, right? Being actually able to see what strength can do. And that's the funny thing about that's the miss, like often those that are weak like to go through the performative strength, right? And this is why I'll point you this I'll tell you right now, this is why you go find me an Aries. Aries very rarely bullies. Very, very rarely bullies. I always describe Aries energy as the bully's bully, right? Because Aries come here, they arrive here with an ability to understand that when you are truly strong, you become a steward for strength, right? You don't feel the need to show it off. You become a steward for the strength it is. And you'll often see this with someone strong, right? They're constantly calibrating themselves. They're constantly being careful with their strength. And that's what I like that's why I feel to a certain extent that this season, right? Like what's actually happening in a way is really beautiful because we've got a lot of planets as we're going through an occluded eclipse that are moving into Aries, right? And it's a continuation, and I like to point this out as well. Um, the fact that this particular eclipse cycle is one that was not able to be perceived directly, right? It's the observation of being able to move into the retrospective point, right? It's a retrospective eclipse. Okay, it's a retrospective eclipse season. It's working into the context of contemplation, but even in the of working through the context of contemplation, right? With the retrospectiveness of it, what do we see that we're energetically retrospecting on? The quality and condition of strength as we have all of these planets that are moving into Aries, right? And it's often the space that you see, right? When you become strong, it's very easy to see the difference between performative strength, right? Right, someone who tries to be like, "Look how strong I am," right? Versus energy that is a steward of their strength, right? That knows how strong they are and works to protect others from it. And that's what's beautiful about it, right? And this is the true heart of what we see in Aries cycles, right? The observation of being a steward of our strength, right? Understanding understanding the significance of it, understanding the value of it, carrying our strength with a sense of honor. And so I feel like and that's why we're identifying here, right? That's why we're seeing in the headspace of masculine, again, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what one feels most aligned to. That's why we see that Knight of Pentacles, right? With the Ace of Cups cantilevered and the Ace of Wands in its reversal. Because it's a further I feel like it's a lot of it's either the masculine energy that is contemplating upon the nature of strength, right? The difference between the strength that is weak, that is performative, versus being a steward of one's strength, right? Recognizing the strength that one has within and holding it with a sense of honor, working in service towards it. So I see that that's a lot of the energy that's working through the contemplation of that, or potentially articulating that around like in the space of those around the self, right? How are you being a good steward to your strength? And I think that in a lot of the ways, I wouldn't be surprised if there's observations are being articulated as it relates to experiences, right? Because we see that here with a lot of this Ace of Cups energy working through. And this is why it's so important that we articulate upon the fact of being able to speak upon the things that we care about, right? Because the only way that we become stewards to our strength is if we hold vulnerability preciously, and our ability to identify vulnerability as the priority, right? We heal our relationship to vulnerability within ourselves, because as we do so, we become stronger to those around the self. Now, this brings us to the feminine energy. And for the feminine energy right now, we're going to be utilizing you know what? I'm feeling inclined to use the Nouveau Tarot today. 3 cards, please. Okay. You want to come out? Yeah, it's feel I know why. It's all that it's that Virgo, it's that Virgo full moon energy we're moving into. 3 cards, please. All straight up. Yep. We've got here the 10. Oh man, they got the 10 of Pentacles in its reversal. We've got the Moon card in its upright. And we also have the 6 of Cups in its upright. So, what are we effectively identifying that's happening right now for feminine energy? I feel like what we're seeing for a lot of the feminine energy is working through the context of what it means to feel energetically supported, right? And I keep on getting that. And I wanna describe this to I'm not surprised to see energy like this, because here's the thing about it, I often attenuate and like to describe Virgo energy as spine energy, right? It's how we show up. It's what we do. It's the space by which we articulate, um, and how we and when we do so effectively, right? When we work through things, then it allows the ability of basically recognizing and identifying. And I like to describe this as the energetic enhancement that we effectively give one another in terms of allowing for the space by which something, I keep on hearing, the space by which something flourishes is the space by which something can energetically grow. And I want to describe that for a lot of the energy working through experiences. I keep on getting working through experiences in the past, right? And this is what's so hard, right? This is what's so hard for feminine energy and relationality to this. The work, why we identify that comparison is so toxic, right? When we think about how toxic comparison is, because when feminine is constantly in the space by which they feel that they have to compare themselves to another, they don't allow the ability to be able to contemplate on what one truly desires, on what one truly aspires for, right? And this is why we talk about, like, when we talk about idolatry, it's the ideal outside of the self. It's the recognition and the understanding of how dangerous it is to hold energetic ideals outside of the self that others articulate upon, rather than moving into accordance with the true nature of the self. So I feel like this is a lot of the feminine energy that is working through, right? I feel like it's like almost like a clearing process by which they themselves are working to heal and clear experiences by which they were effectively overly comparing the self to another, right? It's heavy work, right? There may be a lot of emotionality and feelings that are coming up there. And one of the things that we're effectively seeing that's happening in those experiences or in those abilities is potentially working through, like, the observation of working through, right? The observation of working through something, but at the same time, right? The identification of what feels like it was energetically supportive to the feminine, right? The work by which they themselves work to effectively achieve and identify, right? Building into that sense of stability is often the space by which, right? It's often the space by which you don't allow it to affect the self, but you allow it to direct the self, right? And so I feel like this is really beautiful because it's a lot of the feminine energy that's looking at their emotions from the space of understanding that emotions act as shield. And why do we describe that the emotions act as shield? Because emotions can fix everything. Right? That's what's so beautiful about it. Emotions can fix everything so long as emotions are unified, right? And the way that we effectively identify where our emotions can fix everything is where those emotions are energetically respected. So when we do the work to be respective of our emotions, to understand what they feel and where they yield to, right? Rather than just giving them to others to energetically resolve, then we allow them to be the space by which we see what is energetically possible. And so I feel like that's a lot of the feminine that's working through a reintroduction to their own emotions, right? Not in the space, like, not in the causality. And this is really important here, right? Because it's not the fact, this is the difference between why we don't, having emotions is not does not require one to have to respect everyone's emotions, right? The emotions that we respect are the emotions that have reasons attached to them, right? They have the sense of understanding. They have the energetic story, right? There's this story behind the emotion that has a story attached to it is often the space by which another person can articulate why one feels the way that it does. So this is a lot of the feminine that says, as long as my emotions carry stories and directions, right? As long as the emotions carry stories and directions, right? The energetic history on where the emotions resolve from, and also the space by which one is able to apply them in the right direction. It allows the context to be able to recognize and observe what can effectively energetically happen, what allows for that space of possibility to emerge. So we see that that's a lot of the energy of the feminine that's potentially, right, like, stepping out of their comfort zone in the process of recognizing and identifying those experiences. But it's not easy, right? Especially because we've got the amplification of the eclipse energy right now. Now, this brings us to, right? This brings us to the non binary energy. And for non binary energy right now, we're going to be utilizing the Smith Waite Centennial deck for the headspace of non binary. Can I get 3 cards, please? we've got here, and they're all on top of each other. We've got here the Knight of Swords in its the Knight of Swords in its reversal. We've got the 10 of Wands in its upright, in combination with the star energy in its upright. And so the thing I want to identify that we're potentially seeing that's happening right now in the space of non-binary is and it's going to be it's a combination of a lot of the work that we see that's happening right now for both masculine and feminine, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender but what one feels most aligned to. And I want to point this out because it's very intriguing. What do we see? What do we see is in the area of the masculine energy. We've got the Knight of Wands, or the Knight of Swords in its reversal. And what do we see that in the relationality to the feminine energy? We've got the star, right? And then we've got the 10 of Wands that's effectively centered between those two energies right now. And I want to describe that there's something I see that's happening that has to do with the state of being able to be energetically appreciated rather than coming into the space as mender. Is what I keep on getting. Because and I wanna say this, like, I feel like there's often experiences by which energy is expected to effectively I keep on hearing the space by which another energy often articulates things in the recognition of the fact that another person will energetically understand, right? And this is what I keep on seeing, and I wanted to and this is what we talk about and I need to just stress this 'cause and I feel like it's a lot of the volatility that often comes up when we're working through Aries cycles, because it has to do with the conversation that differs between, um, cause and reason, right? Cause and reason, and the reason I keep on hearing cause and reason is because and I'm just gonna continue to state this, I don't know how many times we have to go through this, um, but, and the way that I'm even articulating is the frustration that we often feel. We do not effectively when we're trying to do something, right? The worst reason to do something is reactively, right? Reactively is retroactively. It's the space by which it sets you back, right? And this is the energy that understands that. Like, and that's a hard thing about it. This is what we talk about with trauma, right? What do you often hear with trauma? Like, they started it. You know? And, like, it's literally like what like, the sound of trauma and someone being like the misalignment in being able to identify and articulate something because another person did it, never are you farther off of your path. Right? Never are you farther off of your path than when another person are when you say to someone, "What are you doing here?" And being like and I want you to think about it like that, right? Instead of saying, "Why did you do that?" Saying, "What are you doing here?" Right? And someone going, "They started it." Right? You'd look at somebody and be like, What?" Like, it doesn't and that's what you have to understand, right? Not like, it's not a destination. That's not a location. They started it is not a location, my friend. You are very lost, right? And this is often and I need to describe this. You cannot have, right? You cannot have a divine conversation in the space by which another person says, "What are you doing here? Where are you going?" "Oh, I'm going to they started it." "What?" "Yeah, that's where I'm going to they started it." "Oh, okay. What does that mean?" I just react to things." Yeah, that's I just make that my that's my thing. Okay, that's how it looks energetically. That's how you look. That's how you energetically look to energy beyond the space, right? In relate like that is it's chaos. It's complete it's absolute ridiculousness. And so we see that for a lot of the energy, literally having to have conversations right? Having conversations with energy that's just in a reactivity space, it feels exhaustive. And you'll often, I feel like this energy has learned a long time ago, right? When you see that, when you see somebody going through, right? When you see somebody going through I keep wondering, when you see somebody going through like the back and forth, right? Someone that's deeply invested in the back and forth, right? Not being surprised when the energy doesn't get anywhere, right? And that's kind of how it is. Do you want to go through back and forth, or do you want to actually get somewhere? And it's interesting too, because I feel like it's a lot of the energy that works through, right? Like works through the frustration of often feeling like they've had to leave traumatic situations by being the bigger person, and recognizing that even in the space by which one does, right? The identification of others' misperceptions on things. So I feel like that's a lot of the energy that works through those experiences. And I keep on getting like this. Remember, I said that in a way that this is very healing to Aries energy, because these are lessons that Aries energy learned a long time ago, right? You'll often see that those that carry a lot of Aries placements, right? It's the identification point, that the comparison that we give ourselves, right? The only thing that we should compare ourselves to is the person in the mirror, the person that we energetically were yesterday. And this is why you have to love yourself, because you cannot move into an Aries cycle if you don't love the person that you see every day, right? And that's often why you see somebody who doesn't love, like, when someone doesn't love the person they see every day, what do they start to do? They start to take all of that and they try to project it on everybody around them, right? And that's why often you'll see somebody volatile, and what's the first thing in Aries will say? Are you okay? Continuing to get clarification, moving back into masculine energy. 3 cards, heart space of masculine, and we're going to be utilizing the Smith-Waite Centennial deck. Yeah. The Smith-Waite Centennial deck for the heart space of masculine. We've got the 5 of wands in its reversal, the 8 of swords in its reversal, and the moon card. And I got to just tell you right now, I'm not surprised about this. We've got a big moon coming up. So we've got double moon energy coming through. And we've got alignment right now between the cards that we're seeing in the space of masculine and the cards that we're seeing. So the heart space of masculine, we see cards in the heart space of masculine that are in the head space of feminine. And like I said, this it's a retrospective eclipse. Okay, there's nowhere during this eclipse cycle that you could potentially see the full totality. But I want to describe that as well in relationality to, and I think that this is rather beautiful for the masculine energy that's working through experiences like this, because it's the identification of working through, right? Working through the deeper feelings upon things, right? It's working into, I feel like there's a lot of that work that is identified as it relates to, kind of going through the understanding of our deeper self, right? And that's what and especially, and I want to describe, this is why we talk about the significance and value of doing our shadow work effectively. And again, I'm just going to reaffirm what I always say, which is to say shadow work is a scary word. It's a word that sounds like spooky for just doing, it's understanding what it is that we've been working to avoid within ourselves, right? And that's the sad truth of it. When we work to avoid things, everybody knows. Like everybody, it's like we work to, like, someone being like, "Ah, I've effectively avoided that feeling." They did not effectively avoid that feeling. Everyone else around them was dealing with the feeling that they were choosing to avoid, right? Like, that's what happens. Okay? It's like, that's what it's like, that becomes the only thing, right? Because it's working into the context of our own understanding about things. And here's the truth about it. We can't ever know ourselves completely. Like, absolutely, can't know ourselves completely, that's great. But, like, when we understand ourselves enough, we know, like, we know what we're not great at. And then it becomes a gift, right? Because if you're not good at something, then you go, "I seek to learn," right? Like, "I seek to learn," or, "It's just not my thing," right? It's like, it's not something they get all, like it's not something that you get all, like, up in your feels about, but boy, when somebody is avoiding something and they've got a lot of feelings, it is like the projection that points right back at them, right? Like, it's literally, and I feel like that's what's happening with some of this masculine energy right now. The healed masculine energy is going, "Your projection's showing." Hmm? Right? Oh, yeah, it's awkward. Like, I'm getting, like, it's your projection's showing, right? Like, that's what it feels like. And then I keep on getting in relationality to that. It's a lot of, and this is what we talk about, like, we have to pay respect to how difficult it is to be on the masculine journey when you're literally mortified by having to look around and feel like everywhere you look, you're just seeing a bunch of energy whose projection is showing, like, you know what I mean? It's like I see the energy, like, literally like this, you know? Because and I keep on getting this, it's an impossible conversation. You cannot have a like, how do you have a conversation, right? Have a conversation with someone whose projection is showing. It's like it doesn't allow you to, because it's like the minute you try to show, right? The minute you try to show something to another, what are they gonna do? They're gonna project on you more, right? Like, and this is why I feel like for a lot of the masculine energy that works through this, it's hard because I can see the space by which it's like one hopes to be able to heal something, and I almost see masculine energy talking to other masculine energy about it, you know? Like, the observation of being able to say, like, "I wish I could," like, having the conversation with someone that you wish you could have with another person, right? It's like the conversation that you desire, but you can't effectively have because the projection's there. It's painful, right? This is how other people's traumas hurt us, right? It's like I can see the energy working through that, but also allowing the context of their own understanding, like, I definitely feel like there's something beautiful there because it's working into the space by which another person is getting, and I can see the energy, and this is what I meant about, like, we often see this in terms of whenever, Saturn moves into Aries, the energy looking back upon the past version of self that was also like that, right? Like, that's the energy that almost says, "I remember." Right? Like, it's working through that observation. Now, continuing to move towards feminine energy, and for feminine energy right now, we're gonna be utilizing the Tarot del Fuego. 3 cards, please. Mhm. 1, 2, 3. We've got here the 8 of Cups in its upright. I love that 8 of Cups. The Temperance card in its upright. I like this is a nice combination of cards here, and the Judgment card in its reversal. And I wanna describe, there's something very important that we're potentially seeing that's happening right now in the heart space of feminine, um, as it relates to experiences by which they themselves may have felt that they were too harsh, is what I keep on getting. I'm not sure why, I just keep on getting, like, this is a big this is a big eclipse cycle in relationality to feminine healing the harsh, is what I keep on getting. But why are we seeing that the feminine is working to heal the harsh, right? Like, masculine is working through how to get through projection. Like, I see masculine being like, "I don't know how to," like, yeah, that's like, what, like, it's hard, right? Feminine is, like, working through is healing the harsh. And why do we have feminine healing the harsh to a certain extent? Because when feminine is too much in the space of comparison, that's what comparison gets you, you know? That's what's being too caught up in others' comparison creates. It creates harshness, right? It creates a lot of that volatility. It creates a lot of that it creates a lot of that space by which one identifies or recognizes, like, what we feel energetically harsh upon. And so I just keep on seeing that for a lot of the energy doing that work, right? Like, and I feel like I like this too because, like, I feel like there's something about the feminine there that identifies, right? When one identifies that, and I need to point this out, when we navigate traumatic experiences, we have to become harsh, right? There's a harshness that arrives within us because we've had to survive and thrive through things. But when we recognize that quality and characteristic, we are, like, I keep on hearing, we are humble with our harshness is what I keep on hearing. And why am I hearing we are humble with our harshness? Because we recognize the fact that the harshness was created at a time by which we needed it to survive, but that our harshness as we heal is something that we work to release and to alleviate within us. Because if you don't heal the harshness that you create in a traumatic space, then that harshness will be the trauma that you bring to every circumstance or situation. I know it's rough, right? It's not fair. It's not fair, and this is what often happens. What's the sound that you often heal? I was about to say, what is the sound that you often heal? I was going to say hear, but I said heal. What is the song that you often heal when you're healing? I need that, right? I need that. Like, I need that. Like, I need. Why do you need it? Because I have to protect myself with it, right? And this is effectively what we see is a lot of the feminine coming into that space of compassion, right? The observation of being able to, like, heal the harshness, and then the harshness being like, "I can't let go of the harshness." "Why can't you let go of the harshness?" "I need that." "Why do you need it?" "Because protect me from what? From the trauma." "Where's the trauma?" "The trauma I escaped from." Ah, now we're getting somewhere. Like, now we're getting somewhere, right? Now we gotta follow the harshness to where it inevitably leads, right? And when we start to take responsibility for our harshness, it's not that we get rid of it entirely, but we're careful with it, right? It's the being like, like, we know where it springs from. So, and I feel like that's a lot of the energy that says it's okay to carry harshness as long as you know the spring within from which it flows, which is the space by which one says, I understand that that is not something that others experience, but that is something that we effectively tend within us. Now, this brings us to the energy, the heart space of non-binary right now, and we're going to be using for the non-binary headspace. We're going to be using the tarot, no, the Vo tarot. 3 cards, please. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, we got a King of Swords. Oh, I know where this is going. Yeah, we got the 8 of Pentacles, a lot of 8 energy and a lot of 8s. A lot of 8 in today's spread, a lot of moon energy, and the wow, double kings, the King of Wands. The King of Wands in its reversal. Wow, that's a look at that. Okay, look at that. I'm just gonna show you the cards for anyone who is the tarot nerds out there. Where are my tarot nerds at? Where are my tarot nerds at? How you doing there, guys? How we doing? It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, and here's the thing about, like, I gotta stress this. Yeah, and we're gonna, and here's the thing. And I'm gonna I keep on hearing this is what's happening with a lot of non-binary energy. Get my healing out of your mouth. Is that Get my healing out of your mouth. But why do we see that? Because, and I need to stress this because for a lot of the energy that does, like, and I want to describe this, the space by which one has to come into healing. like, I wanna describe that this is why we get very I wanna describe the word proprietarial on our own healing journeys, right? Because often when one is moving through a healing journey, it's the space by which and I need to describe this, and I see a lot of the energy that works through it every time. It's so wild. Every time I read into non-binary, there becomes a language problem, which is working through the attenuation of language. And the thing is, language builds upon itself. But this is also how language sometimes loses meaning, right? And it's hard, right? Because, and I keep on getting this, there is the space by which we energetically attenuate. There are the things that we effectively work through, and we try to be energetically specific. And then we get frustrated, right? Because in the space by which others understand things, we often feel like the specificity loses the context in the space of shared meaning. Okay. If you're understanding what I'm talking about here, it's like, and it's interesting that this is all coming through the heart space because it has a lot to do with the way we identify our feelings. And I feel like what I see that a lot of the energy is doing right now is trying to find words to identify the feeling that they're currently experiencing right now. And the thing about it, and I keep on and I feel like it's like that. That's the feeling. Okay. But the way to effectively articulate it is it's the and I need to describe it's the way that we effectively work into something that allows us to effectively and I wanted to like the best way I can describe it for those who understand is yes and instead of no but. Okay? And what do I mean about the difference between yes and instead of no but? When one is moving through a strong idea, right? When you're building into something that feels energetically like grand, then you often feel the energetic excitement with the yes and, right? It's the ability of something that we are like the understanding that we're energetically gaining is the gaining of momentum. It's the work that we effectively do that helps us to articulate upon something in a way that allows us to be able to energetically build upon it. So I just keep on seeing that for a lot of the energy working through those experiences, that understanding, right? Building into that energetic elation point is the celebration. However, I feel like this is a lot of energy that has had to experience energy that desires to come towards them but is more in the no but mentality. And the thing about it is no but doesn't broach conversation, right? Like no but is stagnancy territory, right? It's overly energetically controlling upon things. And this is why I feel like a lot of the energy works through healthy, like they work through the understanding of having to build boundaries under those experiences and conditions, right? The observation of working through something to such an extent and to such a degree that I keep on hearing they had to forge they had to forge their boundaries in the heart of no but is what I keep on hearing. They had in the heart of no but, there they were forging those boundaries, right? The state by which they had to find themselves in the wake of others articulating that they shouldn't, right? The space by which and this is the like that's this is what we talk about, like forging the healthy energetic boundaries in the space of others constantly doubting the self, right? Constantly being in the space of saying, like, like, aren't you tired of being yourself? Aren't you like, aren't you tired of being yourself? Wouldn't you just like to fit in? Like that kind of stuff. So when you work into the space of understanding, right? When you work into the space of understanding yourself, it becomes very easy to be able to see the difference between yes and no but. right? The space by which another person identifies and recognizes because the inspiration and builds into the context of hoping to effectively grow something, right? Versus the experiences by which another person says like tries to come towards you with the clenched fist, right? With the clenched fist of their own desire. Right, and what is the clenched fist of our own desire? The clenched fist of our own desire are those experiences by which another person says, "I want something beautiful to occur, but only under my circumstances." Right? Have fun with that. What does the universe say? What does the universe say when they say, "Show me something wonderful, but only under these conditions?" What? Like, what? It's work. And then you energetically wonder, right? And it's like it's a space by which you see others like and this is the thing about it, like, and I like to describe there is and this is why we work through standards versus boundaries, right? Because standards are and this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? This is the difference that we're seeing right now between between the King of Swords and the King of Wands in its reversal, right? What is the difference? What is the difference between a standard and a boundary? Okay. And this is why you have to be very careful. And this is why I see this energy articulating this, because what is the one rule that we have to be attentive towards? Our trauma loves nothing more. Our trauma loves nothing more. When trauma is looking to survive, it will disguise itself as a boundary, right? Our trauma, absolutely. When our trauma wants to survive, and it'll articulate itself as a boundary, right? And what is the difference between a standard and a boundary? Which is having an articulation point on something that's important, being like, mm-mm. And then what is nice about it? Your standard usually has a story, right? Standards got a story. We don't want to have standards, and yet we have the story that requires us to have a standard. I know it's hard, right? And this is why we often talk about energy, and wisdom often understands the value of energetic standards. Boundaries, a trauma boundary has no story. Trauma boundary doesn't want to talk about it. Why? No, because I said so. Because I said so. Not inclined to discuss. Oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting boundary you got right there. Are you inclined to go into it? No. Oh, okay. It's interesting. I just want to point out that that boundary looks a lot like trauma, right? And we recognize, and that's the hard part. It's not the fact that we don't all carry them. We all have some, right? We all have some within us. And the difference you'll usually see somebody who's working on healing a trauma boundary, you'll be able to articulate because they'll say, I'm not ready to have that conversation yet. I'm not ready, which is the space by which another person says, right? I'm working towards I'm working towards it. I'm working towards it, right? The observation of building into the energetic confidence that it takes to confront a trauma boundary, which is the space by which we hold something that we know is energetically unreasonable, but trauma makes it hard to let go of things, right? And so I feel like I keep on hearing for a lot of this energy, building into the context of saying it's okay, right? It's okay to have both, right? It's okay to be in the space by which, and this is the hard part about it, when we're creating healthy standards, be ready to confront, be ready to confront trauma boundaries, which is the difference between saying this is what's energetically reasonable and this is why it's important, right? Versus those experiences by way another person says, right? The identification point of working through something that feels energetically emotional, right? But the contortion that another person will take because they don't want to energetically face a conversation, right? The readiness, and I keep on seeing, you can tell the difference between healing in the articulation of the defined readiness as it relates to how we're effectively able to work through things. So I feel like that's a lot of the energy identifying and articulating upon that. And even in the context by which they do, right? They're working through the observation as to why that type of work is energetically necessary, right? Healthy things have good conversations attached to them. It's good to talk about it while continuing unconscious right now, moving towards the unconscious. And we're moving back towards masculine energy. 3 cards right now in the unconscious of masculine. And we're going to be utilizing for the unconscious of masculine, the Novo Tarot. Got 1, 2, 3. Thank you. We've got the Fool card in its reversal. I like that. That's like good Aries energy there. The Justice card in its reversal. And we have here the King of Cups in its reversal. So let's talk a little bit about the energy that we're identifying here. Now, a lot of the work that we're effectively seeing has to do, and I want to describe this, and this is, and I want to show you too, like this is beautiful energy in the unconscious space, but it's heavy, right? Because this is working through, right? This is working through the healthy masculine energy that can tell the difference between like the work that masculine has in becoming strong is being able to tell who's ringing the bell. Right? And what do I mean by being able to tell who's ringing the bell? Because the space by which we work through our own feeling of unsafety, right? The thing about it is our higher self and our ego all have access to our own sense of our own anxiety, right? And that's the hard part about it. The ego and the higher self run through the same circuitry of the anxiety that we carry. But that's why it's really important that we get to know ourselves. Because when we're confronted with anxiety, right, being able to tell if the anxiety is coming from the ego, right, versus the higher self is usually articulated as to why does it make you worried? Right? Because the thing is, and you have to understand this, right? The ego is the defense mechanism of the soul. When the ego is in a healthy space, it holds the same condition as the soul. And you'll usually tell that those with healthy egos, the ego is transparent, right? You can see through it. It's beautiful. It's what's outside is inside. It's the same thing. It's streamlined as it is, right? A streamlined experience of a healthy ego that matches the shape of the soul within. Because when an ego system gets hypersensitive, it's usually because the ego is getting too big. Okay. And what happens when the ego gets too big? The slightest thing, right? The ego that's getting too big, what is it always saying? I'm worried I'm going to get fractured. I'm worried I'm going to get fractured. And so it builds and it builds and it builds upon itself. So the smallest thing, right? The smallest thing feels like it's an energetic irritation. Everything feels like it's a threat. The ego under what is the overactive ego always saying? I'm threatened. I'm constantly being threatened by things, which is why you have to be very conscientious of the ubiquitous they, because the overactive ego will employ the ubiquitous they to get bigger, right? The overactive ego will employ the ubiquitous they to get bigger, which says, I'm under threat, I'm under threat, I'm under threat. Build me bigger, until finally you can't hear anything but the ego that continually says, we are in danger, we are in danger. And in the meantime, there is only one dangerous thing around the person whose ego is doing that, and that is the person, right? Those who hurt typically don't try to hurt It's usually somebody whose ego is too hyperactive and feels like they're in perpetual danger. So, the modality by which we're able to regulate our ego is how safe we are for ourselves and for those around the self, right? It's the observation that when we truly want to be in the modality of the protector, we must first be ready to confront the ego, because you cannot, even in the space by which you articulate you're protecting, if you're not confronting the ego first, that can be a very dangerous inclination to have under those circumstances. So it's the working through of what's healthy, right? And it's the ability to confront our own fear that makes us energetically able to be the force that truly is the protector. And it's the reason by which we're able to articulate upon the anxiety that we experience, right? The difference of being able to attenuate the anxiety we feel that we recognize is the ego that feels the sense of being under threat on something that they do not want to energetically face versus the actual something that is actually and practically something that needs to be addressed. This brings us to the feminine energy. Feminine energy right now, unconscious of feminine, and we're going to be utilizing the Smith-Waite Centennial deck. Got one here, two more, please. Thank you. Come on. Okay. We've got here the Chariot card in its upright, the Fool card in its reversal. Look at that. I got to tell you, there's a lot of cards in these spreads. So being able to see, like when we've got a lot of the alignment in terms of the cards in the unconscious space right now, like this is positive. We've got the Fool card in its reversal, and we've got the 10 of Swords in its reversal. So what do we have that's effectively occurring there? We've got a lot. So the observation, what we effectively have in relationality to the energy of the feminine, again, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what one feels most aligned to, the ability of being able to effectively try to move things. I keep wondering the space by which you try to move things into productive places tells you everything you need to know, right? And here's the thing about it. If you're too busy spending your time comparing yourself to everything around the self, you can't move anything into a positive direction, right? Like the biggest the biggest con game on feminine that's ever experienced is the space by which feminine has ever had to compare themselves to anything else, right? It's ping pong. Right? It's just it doesn't it's like why spend an iota, right? Why spend an iota of your time dealing with anything or anyone that would ever compare you? Because all one experiences in the modality of comparison is someone what is the word behind comparison? I would prefer that, right? And once you realize that when anytime you're compared, when another person is saying is, "I would prefer that," then you just let them. You just like, not you just knock yourself out. Go for it. Go. Goodbye. Goodbye. Right? It's like it's a lot of that. It's a lot of that type of energy. Right? Like there's nothing, and often the space, like it's just like if somebody prefers something, why would you ask them to stay? Right? If someone prefers something, you're gonna spend your time trying to lure them. What is that? No luring, right? Healthy relationship is not a luring game, right? It should not feel like a luring game. It should not feel like being like, come here. It's the articulation, right? And this is but this is often the space, like this is feminine clearing themselves of like looking at things like that and being like, this is what you do to get them. Like what? Why are you talking like that? Like this is what you do. What? Are you okay? Right? You just kind of like, meanwhile, you just kind of move like you just right, I just see a lot of this, like, I just see, like, the energy being like, "Okay, okay." And then, like, it's just like that like, that's all I mean, I feel like and I think in that way, because I keep on seeing and I think that it's beautiful too, because I feel like for a lot of the energy, like and I wanna describe this, like, the more you heal, the weirder things will get around you, simply because you stop investing yourself in doing weird things, right? And I know this sounds weird, but sometimes being like, "People are weird," being like, "Yeah, unhealed things are weird." Like, unhealed things are weird. But it's like it's and I like to point out the difference between there's good weird, right? And I need to I keep on hearing, there's good weird, and then there's weird weird is what I keep on seeing. And what's the difference between good weird and weird weird, which is like and I like to point out when you the relationality by which one owns one's weird is directly proportional to how healthy it is, right? Like, it's directly proportional to how healthy it is, which is like, if you're ever unsure if your weird is healthy or not, go talk about it to another person, okay? Talk about it to because weird is delightful. Everybody loves good weird. Good weird is interesting being like weird. That's great, right? But it's like when things are weird, then they're often in the space by which like, and I need to describe this, right? And I feel like the reason that this is coming through right now is and I wanna and, like, I literally see a lot of feminine energy being, like, having to heal from weird situations, and that's unfortunately the shape of trauma, which is literally the space of energy being like, "I had to get out of there because I didn't know what was happening." Like, but the observation but that's the thing about it, right? Like, the unhealthy relationships, we leave and we have questions, right? We leave because we never get the satisfying answer. But when you understand and this is the thing about it, like, do you see what's happening here? In the understanding of this, I just walked you through what happens with the overactive ego, right? The overactive ego that's constantly in the space of navel gazing, that constantly says, we're under threat, slowly getting weirder, but not in a fun way, in like a weird way. And then another person being like, when you see somebody, like when that happens, you effectively walk away and then you feel the trauma of never truly understanding because the ego never has a clear answer, right? The ego never has a clear answer. This is a lot of the energy that says they work to understand their weird, which is the space by which it says nothing is weird. Everything is energetically precious because the space by which we are able to be reasonable and we're able to delight in something, right? The weird that is good is the weird that we hold to the light of day. Right? The weird that is good is the weird that we hold to the light of day that says, "Isn't this like, isn't this" because what is weird held in the light of day become? Cool. The weird held in the light of day becomes our cool, right? Cool. Right. Continuing to get continuing to get clarification. Continuing to get clarification, and we're moving into the unconscious of non-binary. 3 cards, please. Mhm. Um, and we'll be using the Tarot del Fuego for the unconscious of non-binary here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, are you gonna be oh, we got a transverse. Okay. Yeah, these cards are such spinners. Ooh, we got an ace of swords, got a lot of aces on the table. I'm not surprised. It's a pretty intense full moon energy we got coming up. We've got the 8 of swords in its reversal, and we've got the 6 of wands in its transverse. So, let's get into this a little bit because what we're effectively seeing um, how do I describe this best? The Ace of Swords in its upright with the 8 of Swords in its reversal and the 6 of Wands. That's some complicated stuff. I need a minute. All right. A lot of swords there. Okay, here's a lot of swords. the thing I keep on seeing is, and I wanna, like, I think it's interesting too because there's something important that we see that's happening in relationality to working through, right? Working through the context of the self. And I wanna describe what we're effectively seeing there. Um, and I feel like it's very much the embodiment of Aries energy. And this is the thing about it, and you'll often notice this with those with, like, Aries placements, which is like, God help you if you ever mistake the kindness that you find in Aries for weakness, okay? Because the thing about it is you have to understand with those with Aries placements, they had to cobble together, right? They had to cobble that kindness together. They did not arrive here with a lot of patience, okay? They did they did not arrive here with a lot of patience, and they had to find the patience as they went. And there it is. You will find an Aries looking around being like, "What is everybody do? Where'd you guys get all that?" Being like, "You didn't show up with all this I don't get any patience." So, like, literally, Aries is, like, amazing because they have to take the frustration and cobble it into patience. They have to cobble it into kindness. It's often the space by which, and this is the hard part with those with Aries placements. Aries placements typically are very good at trying to get, like, being like, how can we do this faster? Right? And it's not the fact that those with Aries placements don't care. Okay. It's not the fact that those with Aries placements don't care, but often the space by which they're very, like, those with Aries placements are already there, right? That's often what happens. And this is often what happens with Aries placements. And when you know this, right, you want to, like, sob. It's not the fact that you ever interrupt somebody. You're already there. I'm already there, baby. Nope, I'm already down the street. I knew I heard the first word out of your mouth. I was down the street. I had the bags packed. I knew exactly where we were going, right? And so the thing that often happens, right, is for, like those working through having a lot, and we're all going through this because we're literally going through an eclipse process. We're going through an eclipse process where, like, we feel a lot of that Aries energy, right? So the space by which we amplify, I'm already there, is the modality by which we're able to energetically articulate to one another, right? It's the space by which we feel like the space by which we feel that energetic celebration point, the space by which we feel the energetic relief when we bring that sense of directionality to things, and another person says, like, "Oh my goodness, thank you," right? It's like how easy it can be, that feels like an energetic blessing, right? But often what happens, right? Like, and you'll sometimes see this with those with Aries placements, right? The energy that tries to give someone the gift of speed, right? Somebody trying to give someone the gift of speed, and then another person saying, "How dare you?" Right? Because they weren't ready to get over their personal hurdle, right? The modality by which another person, right? Like, another person moves, like, sees, and you'll often see Aries that have lost relationships in this space, right? You'll often hear Aries say, "No good deed goes unpunished," because it's it's the modality by which, right, another person articulates a wish that they don't mean to deliver upon, right? That's different, isn't it? Like, that's painful. Those moments by which you recognize the difference between the articulation, right? Versus what we truly want. And so often those with Aries placements navigate healing from wounds of integrity, right? Which is not the state by which we articulate what it is that we wish is a gift that we give to those around the self. It's not something that we say. We don't our wishes should never be our wishes should never be false shields as to what it is that we're afraid of doing. And that is what we call wishlash, right? The alas, right? The difference between a wish and an alas. And that the modality by which another person says, right? I wish, right? And then another person says, I can fix that. I can make that happen. And then another person falls apart in the context of it because they truly didn't wish it to be. They use the alas, right? They use the alas to recognize the inner impasse, right? And so this is what I see that a lot of the energy is conscientious about, which is why, right? Which is why they build into, right? Why they build into things energetically carefully, right? The modality by which they effectively work through things patiently is the space by which they build into the understanding. I keep on seeing the difference of the healing that occurs in those that truly desire to move towards the dream, right? Versus those that look at the dream, but then always put an energetic limitation in before it, right? Though, and I keep on seeing the energy that says, "What are you looking for? Are you looking like are you looking for building blocks or are you looking for alasses?" Right? Because alasses are often the song you hear with another person that holds dreams. And this is the thing about it: it's not enough to have dreams. You gotta, you gotta get those arms moving. Right? We don't wait upon them. There's no waiting in the context of moving towards our dreams. There's just the dream is in the doing. That bottom of the deck on this reading for the masculine energy right now, Page of Swords, right? I'm telling you right now, I feel like I know there's a lot of volatility here. This is not an easy time, but I feel like there's something really important in terms of truly understanding and identifying what Aries is for. Right? The energy that creates that sense of go. And it's interesting because we often articulate it as a warrior, but it's also the inner child, right? It is the excitement. It is the delight that we bring to things, right? And it's the observation, right? When we want to heal Aries, right? We have to look at vulnerability as the priority, right? We don't look at vulnerability as something that we're working to eradicate within the self, but something that we recognize is worthy of protecting. Because here's the thing about it: you don't find vulnerability the further you go, right? You don't get the vulnerability. I mean, sometimes you get a little bit of vulnerability back, but it's a lot harder to get back. It's a lot harder to get back. It's a lot harder to get back, right? It's a lot harder to get back. It's a different road, right? And so the observation of being able to identify and recognize how beautiful it is, right? And when we understand that the only way we see vulnerability as beautiful is when we start to love ourselves, right? And when you see something, and that's why often when you see somebody who sees vulnerability in another and all it brings out in them is hate, you know, like that's what's so painful because you know that that is the self-loathing that they're carrying for their most vulnerable parts, that they're proliferating on the world because they haven't done the work to heal the self. And that's why I keep on seeing the energy that works through, like the pathwork of forgiveness starts in identifying the first time you felt that vulnerability was something that you had to cleanse yourself of instead of holding preciously towards. While for feminine energy right now, and this is for we're utilizing the Nouveau Tarot, the 10 of Cups in its reversal, right? The false premise of energetic comparison, right? The observation of potentially never feeling like one is enough because it's very convenient comparison. There's always someone better than the self, right? There's always comparison is a never-ending game, right? You'll reach a success point and then there it is, somebody who's doing better, right? And when we recognize that the nature of comparison is building into the false premise that you yourself are lacking, then you stop paying you stop being so concerned in what others' version of better is, and you start seeking your own perfect, right? And this is a lot of that work that we often see with Virgo placements, right? And this is a lot of that Virgo full moon energy that we've got coming up because Virgos often are here, right? Perfect is not a destination, right? The ideal circumstances never present themselves. We create, right? Virgos are when we create the space of it, becoming not seeking perfection, but becoming perfect makers. While for the non-binary energy right now, and we're using the Tarot del Fuego, we've got the World card in its upright. So what are we seeing with a lot of this world energy? The thing with the world energy that I'm identifying right now is the it's working through the energetic compassion, right? Working through the energetic compassion that we often feel. And the thing about it, I keep on hearing, and I need to stress this, compassion, I keep on hearing compassion sometimes builds into the space by which it exhausts us, right? It's the compassion that we energetically feel. This is why we talk about empaths often need to build into, right? Empaths often need to build into healthy energetic boundaries, right? Because the space by which, or holding energetic, strong energetic boundaries, because like what we often feel is the need of others, right? The attenuation of others' needs that feels like it's overwhelming and demanding. And often the feeling of, again, as you're continuing to heal, you can almost feel the energetic needs of others, often being in the space of effectively needing things outside of the self. But I keep on seeing it's energetically reciprocal, right? The way that we effectively work through the amplification, and I wanted to even describe this because often these eclipse cycles can make us feel very hypersensitive, particularly if we already have inclinations and being able to sense others' needs, right? The ability of understanding that your needs, right? Your needs are just and do you see, like do you see how, like, as I'm doing this reading, how quickly, like, my heart chakra started getting, like, do you see, like you see, like, you could all the sound of the self that feels drowned out in the demands of those around the self, right? It gets heavy. It's a heavy mantle to wear. Right? But when we're aware of the fact that it is an energetic mantle, right? The space by which we understand, the space by which we work through something, and we often feel like the space by which we're trying to move something forward, but also feeling the weight of others and the space that their needs also yield towards, right? It's understanding that our work is important because even moving something an inch is a gift. And when you concentrate, and this is why I keep on hearing, bless that inch, right? Don't get overwhelmed. Don't look at your inch and say it's meager. Don't look at something and say it's not enough, right? Don't sit there and perseverate in relationality to something that you're doing and say, I can't give everything. Just say, I'm working towards, right? I'm working towards that inch. I'm working towards that metric. Every day I can look and say, this is how I move something, right? This is how I move the needle in the right direction. This is how I gave something. This is how I left a place a little bit better than where it started. Don't get overwhelmed. Just concentrate on what it is you're doing that allows you to find that point of beauty and satisfaction because it is never lost, it is never wasted, and it is ever precious. That is where we find all of the energy. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you so much for being here and receiving these messages. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you I have a very important message that I would like that I have to deliver. All you have to do if you'd like to book that reading with me is just book one on my website. Also, a couple of updates before we move into personal readings today. First and foremost, I would like to thank in everyone who participated in our recent class on the court cards of the Sword Suite. Our next class will be held on Thursday, February 19th at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. Eastern. We will be continuing our studies into the tarot with a focus on the court cards of the Sword Suite. And if you'd like to become a part of that tarot class program, all you need to do is head on over to my stack and become a paid subscriber. Your paid subscription to my stack is your ticket of entry into our live classes each and every month. As a paid subscriber, you will also have access to over 9 hours worth of material in the Tarot Church Library class archive. Now, it's not necessary to catch up. I'll do my best to give you an update on everything we've studied prior to beginning the next class, but the materials are there for you to receive as you're ready to receive them. You'll also have access to a complimentary one-on-one mentorship class. You also have access to a one-on-one chat with me and the other students to ask any questions that you may have in relation to anything we've learned and studied thus far. And if you become a founding member, not only will you receive a discount on the whole year's worth of classes, but you'll also receive complimentary one-on-one mentorship class with me, where I will meet with you personally to assess where you are on your own personal tarot journey and give you the best insights in terms of how to utilize those classes to the best of your impact, working towards your tarot goals going forward. You'll also have you'll also have access to over 20 hours worth of material in the Tarot Church Library class archive. One of the things I tried to do in these classes was make them accessible to the absolute novice tarot reader as well as the seasoned reader. There's definitely something there for everyone. Don't let your lack of experience or your robust experience prevent you from joining us in these classes. And even if you don't become a paid subscriber to my stack, I would encourage you to follow me there to stay up to date on any new offerings or services. I also post my weekly newsletter there, which will let you know about my in-person events, as well as my online live schedule, as well as my mystic meditation articles, which will give you updates on everything we've been seeing in the cards. I just released one yesterday on navigating this full moon energy that we have coming up. I also want to let you guys know that on top of my standard life path readings, I also offer mentorship classes. These are for any of my students seeking a more personalized educational experience with me. I take a very limited number of students for this reason, as those classes are focused on each individual's personal spiritual goals and journey work. Those classes can be purchased on an individual level or as a monthly class series, weekly or biweekly, as your schedule permits. Also, for my students seeking more consistent weekly tarot support, I'm very happy to offer weekly tarot insight packages. That is a package of 4 30-minute readings, again, weekly or biweekly, as your schedule permits, so that you can stay more consistent on your personal journey. I'm also very happy to offer dream interpretation readings, which you can purchase per dream or as a series. If you purchase a series, I would encourage you to start to keep a dream journal, as we will meet weekly or biweekly with that journal and utilize the tarot to understand the key themes and messages coming towards you in the dream space. I want to thank you guys so much for being here today and sharing in these messages, and we will do this again tomorrow.